Good morning, I've got a coffee on. We're in the south of France and I'm building a house. We're on the land at the moment. It's quite a long story, but we bought this land about 3-4 years ago and we are now at the stage of starting to build the house. We've been through several building permits, including plans for a straw bale house, which we're not doing. I'll do a video on that at a later stage. What we're building here is a single-storey brick house in using traditional methods, or should I say the methods that builders generally use in the area. But having watched quite a lot of builders in the area, and actually the whole region, build houses, there's, in my opinion, a lot of corners being cut. A lot of them aren't safe for various reasons. So I've decided to build it myself. Using information from YouTube, information from watching builders and gathering as much information as I can, whether that be good information or bad information, and bringing it all together to try and build a really strong, sturdy house. In this area here, we're in a seismic zone 3, which is moderately seismic. There have been tremors in the past, nothing too major yet. So I'm building the house to a good standard that should be able to withstand some shocks without being, well, pulled down or cracking and things like that. For the land here, which we'll go and have a look in a minute, we've had soil studies. When we bought the land, there was no legal requirement to have a soil study, but we wanted to have one to actually see what the ground's like, what sort of foundation we should be building. Now, as it happens, this land is quite tricky. Because it's about 3 meters to 4 meters of clay. It's really kind of almost pure clay, a mix of something called marn. I'll find out what that is and put it in the description below. But it's kind of clay, for the sake of argument, it's clay. Certainly when it gets wet, it gets sludgy, slippy, greasy and horrible. And when it gets dry, it cracks, as you'll see. It cracks and contracts, so it is expanding and contracting, depending on whether it's wet or dry. Having had the soil study, which is basically, they come with a penetrometer, and this machine bangs this thing into the ground. They measure the resistance, and we know full well that down to about 3 meters, there's almost no resistance. It's just not good stuff to build on. So you have to make special considerations for how you're going to build it. The soil study came back with 3 options on this land. One was to have piles, in French that's les pieux, piles from 5 meters down to a lot further, 9 meters, 10 meters, who knows. We would have had to have further tests. Now, having looked at the price of piles, it's way too expensive for our budget. The second option was to build a cellar, so basically dig down 3.8 meters and build a cellar under the house. Because of the amount of land that would be moved, would have to be moved, that would be very expensive as well. So we've gone for the third option, which is basically dig down 1.5 to 1.8 meters, and then we're going to refill that with various forms of gravel to about 70 centimeters, then build a radier. Radier is French for a raft or mat foundation. So that's what we're building here. And the reason why we've picked that option is it's kind of a little bit cheaper than the other options, and also I can do most of the work. Paying people to do things in France is quite expensive. So I'm doing the work myself, and also it allows me to take a lot more care and time, frankly, over doing the construction to get it right. Because if we paid builders to do it, I can't help but feel that I'd be really concerned about the, should I say, lack of care going into the construction. So I'm doing most of the work. Whenever there's work that needs doing that I just simply can't do, like skilled digger work like we've recently just had, then I'll find someone who can do that for me. I rent the equipment and then find someone who can do it. Fortunately, we've got a lot of friends in the area, so that's been fairly doable so far. I've never laid a brick on my life. We'll be doing that as well, or I'll be doing that. So I'll be learning off YouTube and then trying to build a house out of brick. So I'm not a professional builder, but over the last 2-3 years, I've been doing a heck of a lot of research on the internet, watching builders in the whole area, in Ord, in Ariège, and basically learning from watching. So fingers crossed, all will be well. But I will be a builder at the end of this, that's for sure. So you're basically coming in at day one on this series of YouTube videos. So what we'll do now, we're going to have a look at the terrassement, the digging work that's already been done. Unfortunately, we had a GoPro that let us down to film that. So I'm going to take you over to the hole. We'll have a look at the digging work and then talk about where we're at and then the next stages of building this house. So let's go. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's supposed to be building a house, not a swimming pool. And yes, this would make a really, really nice swimming pool, but it's actually the foundations for our house. It's actually the digging work for the house. But let's rewind backwards a little bit and talk about the land. The land before we did this digging work, which took 2.5 days, with a friend on a mini pel, a 5.5 ton mini pel, and I was driving a 10-ton dumper. The land basically was a gentle slope. You can see the original grade over there, and it's sloping up towards the camera and slightly up in that direction. So the water essentially runs diagonally across the land, across all the land here, from up there to down there. So what we did first is I wanted to flatten the land so it made more sense. So having had a discussion with a neighbour who was thinking this through with me, what we did, we dug down 65 centimetres in that corner, a little distance from the boundary, and basically cut out a cheese. So at this level somewhere here was a level that's never been touched. So we cut out an area of cheese and flipped it over to that direction. So if you think about a wedge, we cut it out like that and then flipped it over to there. And in doing so, that level went down 65 centimetres. That one went up 65 centimetres, making this whole area flat. That then gave a really good basis on which to then dig down and build the hole. That's Oscar. So after we'd done that, we then dug down 1.4 to 1.5 meters from this area here. So down there, and now because the bottom clay that's never seen the light of day for many, many years, it's now contracting under the sunshine. Some areas now are 1.7 deep. Some are even heading for 1.8 deep, which is great because the clay is contracting, it's drying out. When it gets wet, it re-expands. So that's the reason why we're actually building a raft mat foundation here. As you'll see, there's plastic all lining here at the moment. This is an experiment, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So essentially what we're going to do, we're going to fill this up with gravel, 70 centimetres of gravel, highly compacted with a ruler compactor, which is why we've got access here for a lorry to reverse in and dump the gravel. And by the way, under the gravel, there'll be geotex covering all of this to actually stabilise the interface between the clay and the gravel. So if you join me down here, I'll talk more about this plastic and exactly what the next steps are for the foundation. So here we are in the hole, and just to give you a bit of perspective, on that pile of clay there was where the camera was previously mounted, looking down on the hole. When we dug this hole, 1.4, 1.5 down, we removed 240 cubic meters of land. So there's a big pile of clay there, and then behind that there's an equal pile. So at the moment the kids have a nice mountain of clay to play on and they love it. Let's talk a little bit about the plastic. When we cut down here, because this is south facing, the sun's already getting really hot. It's going to be about 33 degrees today. The clay was drying out. This is to be expected. This hasn't seen the light of day for hundreds, if not thousands of years. As this is also drying out, but we want this to dry out a lot and contract, as mentioned before. So it started collapsing within about 3 days, and that's not cool, because had I not done anything about it, it just keeps collapsing. Because it dry collapse, and keep going. We don't want that, because the further this goes back, the more gravel we've got to buy to actually fill it 70 centimetres. So what I did, I basically moistened it, I sprayed it down with a hose, misted it, covered it with geotex, misted that down, one single layer of geotex, and then covered it with plastic. So far that has held, because it was collapsing a lot, and now it isn't at all. We did have a little fall over there, but I've re-misted all around there. I've got to pop to the shops today to extend the hose pipe to bring it around here to re-mist under here, because it's looking a bit dry, whereas other areas you can see the condensation building up under there, keeping it nice and moist. So we'll be doing that today. That's basically it for the hole. So the next stage is we're going to be lining this all with geotex in one direction and then another direction. So here there'll be at least 2 layers of geotex where the house is sitting. We're then going to fill it to the engineer's specification with 40 centimetres of highly compacted, what they call tuvanon here, which is a grade of kind of finings, sand, all the way through to 80mm pebbles, kind of bits of stone. So that's called 080. So we're going to be doing 40 centimetres of that. Highly compacted, so that's why we've got the drive there, as mentioned before, to get a lorry in and to get equipment in, like a rouleau compactor, like you see on the motorways. We're having trouble finding a big one of those at the moment, so we might have to do with a small one and do lots of very small layers to compact it. So we'll see. And then on top of that, we're doing 30 centimetres of 030, or 020 has been more recommended, but the engineer said 030, so we'll try and get that. 030, again, highly compacted, so that's 0, kind of dust, sand, through to 30mm. And then on top of that, we're going to be building the raft. So the house, although this hole is 14 metres by 12 metres, the actual house is 12 metres by 10 metres. So that gives me a metre margin to actually work in. There's going to be double drainage around this house. Remarkably and stunningly, frankly, the French builders don't seem to put drainage, or they can't be bothered around houses, which is probably why there's problems with settling and there's problems with new houses cracking down the line. Again, it's kind of sometimes better to do it yourself. So there's going to be double drainage around here. Once the gravel's in and the raft, the mat foundation has been formed using the coffrage, the wood, to hold the cement in and all the metal work, I'm going to have a pipe running around just next to that, all the way around, and it's going to drain off to the road. And obviously we'll do the drainage at a later stage. Once this is done, I'll do a video on doing that. I'm going to do videos on all the steps in doing this house, and also all the thought process, and how it should be done properly, to be honest. So there's going to be a drainage here, which to be honest is overkill, but for the sake of 100, 200 euros of piping, it's stupid not to put it in case, for whatever reason, there's water coming up underneath the foundation. So there's going to be drainage here. Once I've built the house, the vide sanitaire, which is the crawl space, up to about this level, I'll be backfilling this, and then about 50 centimetres away from this edge, I'll be cutting down 1 metre 60, 70, or even 80, depending on where this is by the time we put the gravel in, as it contracts. Because I want an external drainage, this is probably the most important, that goes 10 centimetres below the bottom of this. And the reason being is that when it rains, there's little channels of water that run under here. And the water will actually come out of this wall here. And I want to stop that. I don't want water hitting the gravel, running around it, washing away the clay, which ultimately makes the hole bigger, which makes the gravel settle. You don't want that. So drainage is super, super important, because although it's absolutely bone dry right now and really hot considering it's early morning, don't want water getting into the foundation at all. So I'll be digging below this level a trench about 50 centimetres away from this edge, which is why I want to try and hold this up. And the reason being is that we could have had the digger put a 45-degree bank on this, and that would work, that would hold. We wouldn't need to do the plastic or anything. It does hold because we did it on our drive, and I might do a video on the drive later. But really what I want to do is be cutting through as much undisturbed material as possible, stuff that's been here for hundreds, thousands of years. Whereas over there is some fill, but that by the time I dig through, it's probably going to be settled enough to not collapse just whilst I dig down 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 metres. Not sure how deep I need to go yet. As I mentioned, depends on how settled this gets. And then we'll be using, it's not geotex you want to use in French drains, because it's eventually a French drain we're using. But it's a special material that allows water to pass. So it has this kind of same functionality as geotex, but water can pass much easily. The water can just run around and it'll hit the drainage pipe, the same drainage pipe as the drain around here, and off to the road. So when the rains come, and they will come, it will hit this here, go to the bottom drainage pipe and around it. It'll never get to here. And that's the idea, so that it stays dry and the foundation's well protected, because if that doesn't happen, there's going to be problems, absolutely for sure. Drainage is probably one of the most important things for a foundation. So that's what we'll be doing here. So for the moment, that's it. We might be putting space blankets on here today. You know, those survival blankets, the silvery ones, to actually reflect the heat of the sun, to try and keep this cool as well, stop it getting too steamy. But for the moment it's holding. I'm going to go to the shops today, buy a hose pipe and respray under this area to keep it damp, because the hose pipe reached around here but not this area here. So off to the shops, get a little hose pipe joiner, sorry, because I've got enough hose pipe lying around, a joiner, so we can just spray under here and keep it nice and damp, because it's feeling, the clay under here is starting to feel quite hard like the clay here, and we don't want that. So I'll catch you in the next video. Hope you like what I'm doing. If you want to comment, I will. Obviously this is a new channel. I'll read as much as I can and comment. And if you want me to do any videos on any aspect that you feel I've missed, like doing the string lines to actually mark where the house is and was originally and where it is now, even though we've done loads of digging, I still know exactly where the house is going to begin and end. I'm happy to do that. So catch you soon. Have a nice day.